Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Joseph Layton. I'm the CRO and founding partner of Konsyg. We're a sales as a service company which specializes in providing global sales and marketing teams. We're here today to talk about international business expansion, which is something we really know a lot about. Over the last 7 years, we've provided international sales and business development teams globally to help tech companies to expand into new markets and really bring in those opportunities. So today we're going to be talking about how companies can leverage international markets and some strategies to help them go into those. So we all know that international trade has been something that companies have been doing for literally thousands of years. We always think about the historic Silk Road, where companies would go from Asia into Europe and the Middle East, trading commodities and namely silk, and that's kind of what the idea still is today. Even with our company, we're bringing goods and services and technologies and products from the east to the west and to the west to the east, vice versa. And it really does kind of enrich both sides by sharing technologies and data, cultures, and all the things we're going to be talking about today. So in moments like this, in our global economy, where we're facing so much volatility, it really does hit revenue and sales and kind of the way companies are expanding and the way that they're growing. A lot of tech has been affected by this in the past year. There have been a lot of speed bumps, you might say, for a lot of tech companies. A lot of companies are kind of unsure about kind of what strategic direction to take. And one thing that we're kind of encouraging is to look at new markets, to look at global expansion, to look at finding new revenue streams. Diversifying revenue streams is something that's going to help companies to look at new markets and say, okay, we can find opportunities in places that we hadn't thought we were able to even open. But there are a few things that we need to consider in that regard. When you're exploring untapped markets, there's some things to really look at as well. You want to consider that these untapped markets and new markets really do have a rising purchasing power, which presents itself as also a rising demand for services, for products, for technologies that they may not have access to before. Everything's changing so quickly. Gen Z has come up very quickly. You might see them a couple of years ago. We didn't hear anything about it. Now it's all we're hearing about in this global economy is the Gen Z buyer. It's shifting kind of purchasing power and the kind of the global balance in terms of who's buying what and who can afford it. And we're seeing a lot of shifts there. We're also seeing niche markets coming up with a lot of demand for products and services that wasn't there 5-10 years ago. So things are really starting to come alive. We also want to talk about building bridges and creating understanding. These are our strategies in order to do an effective global expansion, to open up these markets. There's a lot of things that companies will need to consider in terms of overcoming language and cultural barriers. These are things that we always want to understand before we go into a market, is what are the concerns? What are the things we need to think about? What do we need to know about cultural norms, about their practices, business practices, how the power structure lies in the boardroom and in the office? What's the decision-making process? These are different per country and per culture. We also want to think about how we can adapt our products and services to local preferences, to buying behaviors, to the way the demographics of the companies are. There's a few things that I just mentioned that we're going to explore a bit more in the reality of international markets, how we need to look at the demographics, the cultural norms, how we should tailor things. How are we going to understand local preferences and the way that they buy, the way that they shop, the way that they are eating? Every country has a totally different um, uh, kind of habits and kind of behaviors around those areas. And those are things that we do need to take into consideration if we're doing business, via a web conference or going to meet them in person. So thinking about those things, we can also look at the other side of the coin, which is entering a developed market. These are markets that countries and companies that are outside of developed markets they might want to break into. These are areas um, that we also might want to break into if we are in countries like the US or the UK. We want to go into other developed markets globally. So we know that these developed markets will have higher purchasing power. They'll have faster sales cycles. They will have more direct buying behaviors that you'll be able to sell faster, quicker, more in those markets. So they're always great, but there are some things to keep in mind when you're going into these markets. A lot of these markets will use English as a standard language, so you can use that as an English-speaking global campaign, and really kind of target these globally so you can have kind of a 360 sales strategy. We talk about New Zealand, we talk about Australia, we talk about the US, but there's other markets and an English-speaking global campaign that you can go after that aren't so kind of highly targeted and highly trafficked by other salespeople trying to sell just like you are. This might be somewhere like Canada. This might be areas in Western Europe that are also very developed and also can use English, like the Nordics. They mostly speak English there and they have a very high response rate. You might also be looking at areas like the Netherlands or Switzerland or Australia or Dubai. Looking further east, I would put into that Singapore, Hong Kong. These are areas where you can execute an English-speaking global campaign, get kind of very developed companies and very sophisticated buyers, but you're employing a global strategy. The EU also is a great opportunity. Now, some countries there won't be appropriate for an English-speaking global campaign, namely some areas in Southern Europe might not be able to kind of afford things or be able to as apt to kind of take on a higher ticket item in the English language as well. Now, if we're talking about the other side of the world with APAC, there's a lot of things to consider when you're crafting your market entry strategy. APAC is extremely diverse. It's home to literally hundreds of languages and just as many cultural practices, norms, expectations, demographics. Very complex, even from one country to the next in a very small area or seemingly comparatively small area, going across from, let's say, Singapore into Malaysia. The culture is similar, but the buying behavior is very different. The same might be said from going from China into India, very different, or any other area there. So unpacking the APAC market entry strategies, do a bit of market analysis before you go into a market. What is the purchasing power like? Will they take a pitch in English? Do they need your product or service localized? Is that going to be important to have the user interface in the local language or local script? Nowadays, it's not that difficult to reach out to a localization company and have that done. And it might be expected in certain markets there, it might not in others. So it just depends on the level of the user. Is it going to be kind of a entry level or middle manager in Thailand? They will need a a localized version of your solution. However, if you're going into the upper echelons and kind of director executive levels, they might be able to use it in English. It just depends on the level of their kind of training in English and understanding. And every country is a little different. In the Philippines, you can totally get away with English. Same like maybe Singapore, of course, ANZ, India. These guys will all take it, but just depends. Every country is a little different, so you really need to understand a bit more about the markets you're going into. That goes to show that tailoring strategies are going to be the best way to approach the market. So understanding, will my marketing materials also need to be in local languages? Will I need to do a campaign with a local salesperson? It's gonna differ in every single market that you're going into. You also need to understand the cultural factors here. Going into markets, how are the buying behaviors different from your own country? If you're coming from the US and you want to sell into one of these highly dynamic, growing, fast-paced countries like Indonesia or Vietnam or China, how are you actually going to do that? What are some strategies that you might employ to make sure that your campaign into these countries is better and you can really tap into the market in a really effective way? There's just a few simple things that you can do to make that successful. You can collaborate with locals. So having a local distributor, this can be something like a managed service provider, IT consultancies, doing a partner campaign. So reaching out to your a partner who might have connections with all the top banks in that specific country, or insurance companies, or whoever their clients are, and whoever you're going after. If you're trying to sell fintech into India, it would be great to have a local partner there who has those connections, who understands how to open the doors there and go in and shake hands and kind of initiate the process. We've done a lot of partner campaigns across the world, and we found that you can go ahead and go after the end user. That's great. So if let's say you're a cloud services and you want to go after insurance companies and all of these different, whoever else is in your targeting, it might be great to go ahead and approach some of the larger, more established, reputable kind of IT consultancies there that will be able to move your solution in where they already have connections. That's also building a strategic alliance and working with them to kind of see if you can kind of share the approach there. And also maybe you might find somebody who's in a similar industry who you guys can partner with and create some kind of a joint venture, a joint alliance to approach the markets in that way, where they've already done all the heavy lifting, and you'll just use their expertise together to kind of approach that market. There is a lot of compliance and legal issues that you might need to know about. Sometimes when you're going in with a SaaS product or service, you might be able to kind of skirt around some of the legal and compliance things because it might not apply to you. However, if you're going into fintech markets or banking or insurance or anything where there's specific kind of compliance issues, look at the trade laws, look at the regulations, the licenses, the permits. These are all things that we can kind of prepare for and just do a little bit of due diligence in your homework. And that way, you can protect your investment into these markets and make sure that it's money well spent. Human resources and talent acquisition. Now, this is important for certain markets. You do need a native speaker to penetrate certain markets. You might have that in Central and South America. You might want to have that in Spain and Italy. for certain markets. It depends on which end of the market you're trying to go into. Are you reaching out to high-level decision makers and Fortune 500 companies? Maybe you can do that in English, but if you're looking at more local kind of areas, it just depends on the specific market segment you're going after. You'd have to do an analysis to see, do I need local talent, or can I get away with this with an English campaign? Looking at global leadership, you need to have leaders in your company who understand cross-culture training. How do you approach people in these countries and these cultures? If you're coming from the East, how do you talk to somebody in New York City? Well, you need to be very, very direct, to the point. Sure, create a little bit of bonding and rapport moments there, but you also need to make sure that that conversation gets to the point very quickly and you're able to move forward and be very transparent in how that onboarding process works. Understanding diversity, inclusion within your own company is also going to help a lot to do these cross-cultural exchanges. So the more of that you can get, the better. And this is a bit more context around languages, which we've discussed. It's something that every single country and market is going to be a little different, every industry. So you'll need to talk to somebody who knows about these countries and who has the expertise, who knows what the local languages are and how far that will get you. There's always financial considerations. Talk to your accountant or your representative on how you want to take the currency. Do you want to take their local currency, or are you USD or Euro or pound only? It's going to be up to local regulations and how your partners will be able to pay you. So we've got a case study here, and this really illustrates some of our success with kind of global expansion campaigns, setting up country offices, and kind of how a company in headquartered in Singapore, but with strong presence in Bangkok, was able to kind of branch out globally and really set up themselves for a very kind of strong strategic base to propel a lot of market expansion into the European and British UK market. So this is about Andavar. This was a few years back that we spearheaded this global campaign. You can also find this on our website, konsyg.com, where we go over a lot of our case studies and kind of how we've helped companies do this. So Andavar wanted to set up a European base of operations for sales, business development, as well as for their own kind of project management and operational hub. So we worked with their executive team to kick that off. The first stage was to really identify local talent there who had multiple language proficiencies. So we were able to secure we did about over 100 processing, you might call it, of different profiles, talking to them on the phone, scheduling meetings, really trying to understand who was coming in our HR pipeline, filtering those through. And then we went through about 25 interviews in Budapest. And what we found there is that Budapest was a great hub for kind of salespeople, operations people who spoke multiple languages. So when you get into Europe, of course, you're going to find people who speak Russian, who speak Italian, French, German. One person's going to be able to handle multiple languages. So we are able to really leverage that strength and create a really strong base there. We found some office space as well, and we're able to secure that, as well as help with a lot of legal concerns, meeting with local lawyers, how to establish an entity there to kind of help our the staff to register and kind of comply with local regulations. Every country, as I mentioned, has different regulations. You might be able to, for some countries, get away with kind of having a consultant agreement, but we wanted to, go about it in a different way in this situation where there were some kind of legal and registrational things that we helped with. So in that case, we were able to put together a full team, sales, business development, operations, as well as establishing a physical office, legal representation as well. This allowed for a lot of growth within the company and a lot of reach. They found that the global presence was really strengthened, where they were able to find a lot more clients in Europe and in the UK, especially in the markets that they were targeting, namely the Nordics, Central Europe, including areas around Budapest, but Western Europe, the UK, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Austria, these areas, Germany, France, that really kind of helped expand and create a real footprint in that expansion. So when you're talking about long-term sustainability and growth, you want to make sure that your operations, especially in sales and business development, are repeatable and scalable. You've outlined all of those processes, everything about how you guys go approach the markets, how you pitch, how you convey the value and the selling points, and then how you're going to retain those same kind of customers and opportunities that you've been able to create with all of these strategies and all of the considerations that you've been able to kind of cultivate. It's really important once you do land those opportunities and do get a foothold into these new markets, go ahead and have a a customer rep there who's able to address all of their concerns and everything that they are kind of working towards together with you guys in a timely manner, somebody in their time zone. That's going to help and go a long way in kind of cultivating those business relationships and ensuring that sustainable relationship endures. So, and to conclude here, thriving in these global markets is really important. Having a strategic approach is the way to kind of make sure that when you do go into the markets that you do have a strategy. There's a way to enter these markets from a strategic way where you planned out all of the cultural concerns, from language to buying behaviors to the currency, regulatory risks. Look at that. Having a partner like us, like Konsyg, would do a lot and take you a long way, and understanding that, because we've gone into these countries globally. It's the number of countries that we've been able to open up for our clients is innumerable, you might say. We've been able to really help with the global scaling and understanding all of the complexities in these markets, and having a partner like that is invaluable. We have had that successful track record, diverse clients. We've had clients from every corner of the world, doing campaigns in over 20 different languages, local partners, having that kind of experience and expertise is something that is hard to come by. Having a skilled sales force with a deep local knowledge, but also the industry knowledge. There's a lot of companies that you need to know about when you go into these new markets. You want to know who are the local players, who are the top 10 banks, who are the top 20 IT companies, who are the top 30 insurance agencies. You know, do you have that mapped out? Do you have your TAM strategized? How you're going to go into your total available market into these industries? It's important to know that. Also, making sure that you're able to communicate with your client, that you are building there, that pipeline, but also the clients that you're winning. Be able to communicate properly with them. Do you understand what they're looking for and the way that they do business? You know, go ahead and work on that with a company and a team that really understands kind of how the approach should work. Leveraging a global sales and business development team is not only going to increase your sales efficiency and also increase the performance of the team, but it's also going to really benefit the company. It's going to open up new revenue streams. It's going to open up new markets. It's going to open up new ideas on how the company can go forward in a global fashion, how it's going to be, and you'll learn a lot. Going into these new markets, you'll be able to kind of see what works, what doesn't work, and then you'll be able to shape your product and your service in that way, so that you will be able to really, you know, kind of use that data and the information, the feedback from the market, and say, okay, this is the feedback and this is the buying behavior in the US and Canada. However, we're seeing in Central and South America, it's totally different, and we need to use this approach. That'll help inform both sides of the strategy there. So feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions or comments. We're happy to share insights. One of the things we really like to do is to talk to, you know, potential partners around the world and understand kind of what you're seeing in the markets, what kind of buying behaviors are you noticing, what are you kind of creating in terms of strategy, and we can share what we've learned as well. You know, we're always happy to share insights and kind of collaborate on you know, what kind of strategies might help you know, you and your company achieve success, not only locally but also globally, and also let you know kind of what we've worked on that might be similar, that has also been a success. So feel free to reach out. Here's my LinkedIn, Joseph Layton, and my email as well, but feel free to check out our website, konsyg.com. You can also find a link to our Calendly on there. Just schedule a chat and you'll be speaking with either me or our CEO, William Gilchrist, and we'll be happy to chat with you. So thanks a lot, everybody, for joining in today. It's been a real pleasure to have you here, and good luck on your global expansions.